Greetings, greenhouse people, loyal listeners, and folks here at the Gardens at Ball on our first day of Ball Seed Customer Days 2025. I'm your host, Bill Calkins, and this is the Tech on Demand podcast brought to you by Grower Talks and Green Profit. If you're not a subscriber to Grower Talks and Green Profit, seriously, what are you waiting for? The magazine's been published for 75 years. Great information every single month of the year. You can subscribe at growertalks.com, or for those of you here in the audience, you can go into the cafe, which is air-conditioned, and subscribe to Grower Talks right there in the cafe. It's just a form you've got to fill out, and that reminds me to remind you to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app. But without further ado, my guest today is a friend and colleague, Seth Reed. How's it going?
Oh, it's good. I'm excited. I'm also a guinea pig. I've never really done a podcast either. So we're all new. It'll be fine, though, probably.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
Yeah.
I've done over 200 of these podcasts, and I would say more than half of them have been absolutely fantastic. A few have been terrible, but that's okay. That's just how life goes. Seth has had many roles at Ball over the years. He's been in supplier relations. He's been in sales management. He launched a consumer gardening app here at Ball called Grow It. That was a pretty cool time in your career.
That's in the history books. I've also been to a lot of customers, so I've been to, I think, like 35 states and 4 provinces since I started with Ball. So I've been to a lot of grower retailers, a lot of wholesale growers, tiny growers, super large growers. So I've learned a lot from just visiting, customers all over the North America. So.
And you have a hort or landscape degree, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a horticulturist. I just like to say that I'm not a good one. I have
Fair.
a degree. I know more than my wife does about plants.
Okay.
Right?
But
probably a lot less than everyone, walking around.
So if you have production questions, don't ask Seth.
Do not
and
ask
don't
me.
ask me.
No. John in the back, he knows production, so you can ask him.
Find someone in a white ball shirt that's not
Joe.
Seth, and they'll answer
I know
your
Joe
questions.
knows stuff about production. Yeah.
It's true.
He can help
It's
you
true.
out.
But now Seth is currently embarking on a new role at Ball. He is the Global Sustainability Manager. If you don't know what that means, I don't either. I have no idea, so you're going to have to ask Seth.
Well, yeah, you can find me afterwards or email me, sreed@ballhort.com. It's really just about working with organizations globally in the industry on their sustainability initiatives, trying to do better. A lot of that means less waste, less resources, being more efficient. So it's been an interesting journey already.
But I've known Seth for almost 20 years, and we have discussions like we're about to have quite often. We've talked about the industry at length, tried to solve the industry's challenges for many years, and we probably had some good ideas over the years.
Yeah. No, it's been fun.
So we're going to get started. I'm calling this Horticulture 2.0, Rethinking Our Industry, and we are going to try to solve all the industry's challenges in 15 minutes.
It's going to be amazing.
Here's how it's going to go. I have 3 big ideas. I'm going to throw them at Seth one at a time with my own thoughts and see what he has to say, see if he has any bigger ideas related to those. There are really no right answers. None of us have a crystal ball, and that's what makes it exciting. But what I hope comes out of this are ideas for you to think about, potential directions to steer as we enter what I consider a new era of horticulture. Let's start with big idea number 1. Big idea number 1 is post-pandemic growth versus new realities. As an industry, we have successfully grown sales since 2019 or 2020. And a couple weeks ago at the Cultivate show, maybe that was last week, Dr. Charlie Hall, who is our industry's economist and sort of prognosticator, talked about how the sales growth is plateauing, still above 2019, so we're still in good shape. But there is a new reality. We have a new customer base emerging, and our goal is to continue to increase sales for all of us, whether that's from a ball seed distribution level to your greenhouse to garden centers, landscape businesses. The goal is always to grow sales. So, Seth, here's my thought. One of the ways that we can grow sales in the near term is by really leaning on the value proposition of all of our individual businesses. And for a company like Ball, that could be the fact that we are a 4th-generation family-owned business, been based here since 1905, have a great story to tell, but also the investment that we do in breeding and producing the best new genetics And then our distribution company working one-on-one with growers to make sure that those crops get into greenhouses, and then letting the growers and wholesalers take it from there to work with the retailers. But a great value proposition does a lot for a business. Telling your story to your customers creates loyalty. That's one of my big ideas. Seth, what do you think about that? And what are some other ideas you have for growing sales in the near term?
Yeah. So on top of that, telling that story and the value proposition, right, for what you do, right? It's like not easy work. Back in the history books when I did Grow It, the mobile technology, I would talk to people that don't buy plants, and they actually thought plants were like created behind the store. Like, you go out, throw some seeds in a pot, and they're like, don't the plants, they're just like, they created it behind Lowe's or behind the garden center. Like, they had no idea that they were started from seeds or little cuttings and all the steps and all the processes, and so how can you tell the story so that way people are like, oh, wow, there's a lot going on here, like cars, right? You spend more money on newer cars. Why? Because they're safer. They talk about all the things that they do, all the research that goes in, how much safer you are in a new vehicle. Are we saying enough about all the things that we're doing so that way it's a high quality plant and it'll have customers will have success with it? So
whether that's disease resistance, like the beacons, or some of the tomato varieties,
or it's just like from a grower or retail side, right? Like, you do a lot of research and you're picking the very best plants for this area. Right? Like, if you ever had a tomato die, well, maybe as blight, right? So that's a blight thing, right? So you're just a sort of okay horticulturist. We're picking tomatoes that don't get that or that are disease resistant. So I think telling the story, try to bring up the value for the plants that you have. One of my other ideas was, we get sore because we don't think people want to garden. I think the biggest competition is really time, lack of time, right? Pandemic. There's nothing to do. So they're like, yeah, we'll garden, we'll go outside, we don't have all the soccer games. Now there's no time, right? If you have kids, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. Like, you don't have any time. And so when you actually have time just to chill and your kids is getting all sweaty, right? Like, if you're Probably not. So what can you do as a business to be easier? So from like thinking of a grower retailer side, could you open earlier, stay open later, right? So you get people on their way to work or on their way home.
Could you make your store easier to navigate so that they don't need to spend as much time? They might spend as much money. And I've got this theory now that people, when they go in to shop, are on a mission. It's less, I don't want to spend a lot of time there. I'm going in, I want to get what I need. I need the store to help me find what I need and then get out. I don't think the sales, like the number of units sold, aren't going down. The number of time spent in the store is going down, and that's the new reality.
So I got an unpopular idea.
Let's hear it.
Right? So garden centers, right, about being a destination. We've promoted that for a long time. Well, maybe for the next customer, being a destination maybe isn't the route. Maybe they don't want to spend all day at the garden center. They just want to get in, like at the grocery store, right? Like, I just want to get my milk. I want to get a few things. I don't want to get anything else, because then my cart's going to be a lot more money. I mean, we want them to spend more money. But, like, how do you maybe not focus on being a destination always, but how do you have a really efficient experience? And then, can you ask your customers, ask one of your staff members, family members that's not a big gardener, have them come in and shop and say, what did you think of that experience? Could you find everything you wanted? And then just listen and I would tell people, vent to me. Because if you vent to me, then I can learn your problems and I can find solution for those problems. And just let them vent and let them share with you where you're doing it wrong. And you could do that whether you be a grower, retailer, or if you're a wholesale grower. Talk to your customers. What was the buying experience like? What was it like when I brought my plants with our truck? Oh, the plants were on the very back, and it was such a pain. And, the trays are, just listen to customers. Just pull back. Just be more efficient because we're competing with time.
Very good point. Every challenge is an opportunity to overcome that challenge, and that's what customers really want, is to know that you're making a difference.
So I know we don't have a ton of time. I got so many ideas here. Sorry. So
that's why I picked Seth. He's like a black belt talker.
And listener. So if you want to meet afterwards, I can listen too. You can vent to me about all my bad ideas. So we talk about being kid friendly.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm going to change it and make it recruit kids, right? Kid friendly is passive. How do we make it like kids want to come into the garden center? Again, lack of time, right? So you're just chilling with your family. Do they want to go in? My kids do not want to, and it's so dumb. Like, I want them to want to go, right? But they don't want to. Could you provide free ice cream with a purchase, right? So every kid that comes into the garden center, oh, yeah, I'll go to Joe's Garden Center. I'm going to get free ice cream. Yeah, win, right? Could you...
like the little sherbet cups in the back that are free and not very expensive. You could provide those to kids in the store.
Yeah, work with another local garden center and say, hey, I want to get ice cream really cheap, so we're going to order a giant load of ice cream so we can give it away, right? Give something away to kids. Kids love free stuff. Ask your staff members what's really popular with kids this year and challenge yourself. How do you embrace that? So Pokemon, anyone have little kids, right? Pokemon is super crazy because there's all these scalpers taking it, so you can't buy Pokemon cards at Walmart anymore, right? So my son's super into Pokemon. Again, how do you embrace it? Could you create a Pokemon display? If I could tell my kid, oh yeah, there's Pokemon something at this garden center, oh, he'd go, right? And it sounds kind of dumb, but we're competing on time. How do you make it easier for parents? Not all shoppers are parents, but how do you make it easier for them to get in, get what they need, and go home and garden?
I like that idea. I'm going to jump to big idea number 2. And I know Seth and I have a million ideas for each one of these, but big idea number 2 that I have is labor versus labor retention. Yes, our industry has a labor problem. Nobody can argue that, but I think the solution for each business looks different. So we're not going to solve that problem sitting here in a tent right now, but I do think we can talk about the labor retention problem. I was talking to a cut flower grower at Cultivate last week, and she was really struggling to hire folks to work on this farm. And she said they have this expectation that it's all beauty and, roses and lilacs, and she's like, no, this is really hard work. And she had a lot of people who'd start, and they wouldn't even make it through lunchtime. And I thought, my goodness, that is a problem. My past, I worked at a garden center for many, many years. It's hard work. But what are some ways that a horticulture business can work to keep the employees they hired? Because as you know, onboarding or hiring an employee takes time. Time is money. There's actually a lot of cost that goes into new employees. It's very expensive to train them. So the goal has to be keeping them as long as possible. We've been talking a little bit at Grower Talks about having a series about how to manage employee burnout. We all know in spring it's hard. It's hard work. You're not working 40 hours a week. You're working upwards of 40 hours a week. And one of the things I heard from a grower in Ohio, and she manages a big team. She's a head grower. And she said, well, we have a staff meeting every week where we sit down and we say, if you're getting burned out, take a day off. And she goes, that seems crazy to a lot of growers as you're preparing for spring. But she said our team covers for them. They take a day. They kind of recharge. They come back. They're working harder when they come back. She said it's just sort of an open policy. If you need a day, take a day. And she said her dad doesn't always like that philosophy and never really had that philosophy years ago, but that's really the way they do it now. So I think managing burnout is very important.
Can I jump on that?
Of course. That's why you're here.
Do we got any owners here? Anyone owning, semi-owner, or been with the business for more than 15 years? Remembering that the way you think about the business is totally different than the staff, right? Well, what you care about and how you approach it is going to be totally different. And so I think trying to embrace those different views and giving people an opportunity, it's also leading by example. It might be super hard for you to take a day off, but you got to take a day off, and you have to not answer calls or emails, right? Because the staff members be like, oh, well, Mr. Robinson never takes a day off, and if I take a day off, he's probably not going to like me anymore, and he's going to make me do the really crappy job, and we battle that at Ball too. I always remind, if you're taking vacation, do not answer your email. Do not do it. And then you got to remind yourself as a manager, oh, don't answer that email, or answer the email, but don't send it to the next day, right? But you just got to lead by example and help your staff do what they need to do so they can be healthy.
Which segues right into my other idea, which is the importance of mentoring. And Chris Beatties and I were traveling in Indiana a couple years ago, and we worked into a greenhouse, and They were talking about the challenges of hiring new section growers. And they were saying, well, we keep promoting these younger growers up to be section growers, and then they don't stay. And really, when we dug into the problem, a lot of it was that they didn't have anyone to learn from, so they were kind of thrown to the fire. And we were thinking about that a lot, and so I've been talking to greenhouses that actually do mentoring, and that's really making sure that all of your new employees or existing employees have someone they can go to, like the go-to person who's been there a while, who can help answer questions, can help navigate the problems that they're running into on a day-to-day basis, but making sure that everybody has a more senior employee that they can go to, a mentor. And that can help them with managing burnout. It can help them with managing pests and diseases. It can help them with, hey, I'm having this struggle with my kid. There's all sorts of different things that a mentor can do, but knowing that there's someone in the business you can turn to who will listen, I think is really, really important for retention.
And so another idea? Yeah, so I had this idea on my way in this morning, which I was like, oh yeah. So I new to you, right?
New to me, let's hear it.
So I've been to a lot of businesses across North America, and we have so many entrepreneurs, right, that started businesses. So we have an amazing industry of doers. I don't think that we always have an amazing industry for leaders and managers. And so I would promote taking a management and leadership. How can you become a great leader and a manager in whatever sort of operation that you have? Take a class. American Hort offers things. You're going to be doing a series potentially on this. Go to LinkedIn, does courses. It is an amazing experience. Testimonial. They had they do different training things here at Ball, and I always thought I was like a great leader, right? I'm not full of myself at all. We take a class, and I always pride myself. I'm a talker. I'm an idea guy, right? Got so many ideas. And I thought it was great. But then they were talking about managers and different manager profiles, and they talked about how actually being the idea guy isn't always great when you're being a leader or manager, right? Because you meet as a group and you're like, oh, we have all of these Mandevilla we have to sell. What are we going to do? And then I'd be like, oh, we're going to make this really cool display, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Done. But if you're always that guy, then your staff starts to know, oh, well, you know what? I don't have to say anything at all. I don't have to think, because Seth is going to come up with the idea. So then you start to create staff members that are a little bit complacent because, oh, well, my boss is the idea guy. I'm just going to stand here, nod, and make him think I like him, A class taught me, do not be the first one to talk. So for the team that I don't have anymore, but I had before, new role, they weren't taken away from me or anything, but I would ask a question, and then I would try really hard to be quiet. Don't say anything. See what people have, right? They have an idea. Then you ask a question. How would you do this? How would you handle that, right? You ask questions. And by asking questions, you're training them to think on their own.
That's empowerment, right?
Yeah.
It empowers the team who works for you, your staff, the ones who get the job done. You're empowering them to figure out new ways to do things, to figure out better ways. A lot of them have great ideas that just might not come to the surface.
Let them make mistakes.
Without an opportunity. Yeah.
Right? Oh, Joe, you go do the display. Do I want to do the display? Heck yeah. But have Joe do it. And then you walk by and you're like, I don't know about that, right? But you let them make some mistakes, because if they never have a mistake, how are they ever going to learn?
And then before we wrap up big idea number 2, I just want to say one of the other ideas that Seth and I had talked about is allowing an opportunity to change roles. Sometimes, and I think certainly in our businesses, you can get, I want to say stuck in a role, but that just becomes your thing. And maybe after a couple of years, you don't like it that much, but it's still your thing. And so you're stuck doing it. Jim Kennedy was just talking about his brother who was the transplanter. Well, allowing a team member to move and sort of evolve through different roles could open them up to new opportunities that are a better fit for them, could allow them to see things they really don't want to do. It could just open up a pipeline for new ideas. So I think allowing people to flow through different roles might be an opportunity. It might be a way to keep them and to keep them loyal and to keep them for more than a year or two.
Well, and a lot of young people are they job hop, right? I'm going to go over there, I'll make a little bit more money, or I'm getting bored here, I'll move over there. I've been at Ball for 17 years. Yes, I drank the Kool-Aid, but I have had 5 very different careers here in 17 years. So I'm never bored. right? I always get something new after a few years. And how might you, and it can be hard in a small operation, but how can you kind of define different ownership pieces and say, hey, for the next year, this is going to be your thing. And then if you do good and you learn, next year that's going to be your thing, and try to move people around.
I've got you beat. I've been here 20 years and had 6 roles. I was actually, after we talked yesterday, I was thinking about that. Yeah, 6 different roles. Actually, one's kind of a repeat role. I'm back writing for Grower Talks.
That's
but
fine.
20 years, 6 roles. You got some catching up to do.
I'll be there.
But I think you'll do it. Third big idea, put data versus production, but it's almost production versus automation. We talk a lot about improving production, and then you hear a ton about automation. And automation can mean all sorts of different things, whether it's a new transplanter, an upgrade to your environmental controls, a new Priva system so you can manage VPD. It could also mean using AI to reduce the time it takes to execute repeated tasks. One of the things I heard at Cultivate last week is the garden center using AI to write plant descriptions for their signage at the garden center. That's a little scary to me because I know that there's all sorts of different regionality, but you've got to tweak it for your own region or your own location. But still, that takes a lot less time than rewriting all your signs. But really, the goal of all this is profitability and efficiency. Jim talked a ton about efficiency in the last talk here in the tent, reducing costs, increasing prices. Pricing and costing is such a huge thing. But an idea I heard from a greenhouse down in southern Ohio, and then it was repeated by another greenhouse owner in New York, is creating production plans for every crop you grow. And that's usually held within the head of your head grower who's been there 30 years, or on his notebook or her notebook that they carry around. But it's having a shared documents for production plans. So Calibracoa, 14-inch hanging basket, this is exactly when they're transplanted, when, the first PGR is applied, like everything listed out. It takes time to do it the first time, but then it exists in a shared document that everybody has access to. If you lose that grower moves into a different role, all that information's kept. Then you can take photos of it, attach photos to that folder for that specific crop, and do this for a few years. You're going to have a massive encyclopedia of crop production templates. Well, and then you go back at the end of the season, you say, whoa, we missed that by a week. Let's go back and change that production plan so that next year, and I've got pictures then that show the progression of that crop. It just seemed like such a brilliant idea, and you could do it in Google Docs. Microsoft has shared platforms. You can just save it as Word documents. As long as you have it filed, you can keep going back to it from year to year. So that's not high tech, but it's certainly something that I don't think a lot of greenhouses do. What do you got?
All right, so I have a low budget option and a medium budget, or low budget, medium budget idea. So the low budget idea actually got validated by Mike Cleason from L&M. I was talking to him a little bit earlier today, and talking about how he did the season with 3 less people he's ever done before, right? And I was like, how'd you do that? He's like, I just changed up a bunch of processes. So often, right, we do things the same way we ever did it. Like Donald created the task 10 years ago. He taught Sarah, and then he taught me how to do it. And this is just like the way we fill our flats. Is it the right way? Is it the best way? How might you have someone audit your processes? Invite a peer in from another greenhouse, find like an engineering student or something, right? Like people that just like are very practical.
Like
right?
what kind of process? Give me an example.
Filling flats, right? Like, when do you do it? How do you do it? Because, oftentimes, sticking cuttings, right? You want to stick cuttings into damp soil, right, Joe? Like, or, not moist, not too moist, sorry. Not a great horticulturist here, but not dry soil, right? So, like, when do you do that? How do you do it? Do you put it on a pallet, And so just, like, looking at the process and say, well, maybe something doesn't make sense. Maybe the pallets, maybe it's really easy for the pallets to go on that side of the greenhouse and the fillers over here. I can't put the pallet over here because there's all this stuff in the way, right? So like your staff members are going to work around the systems that you created, and they're going to make it easy because they don't want to ask. They'll be like, oh, do you mind if we like move all this stuff around for like a whole day? They're never going to ask that. So look at the process pragmatically and like, how might we change this that could save a boatload of time?
Do you need an outside person to do that, or can you maybe just ask internal people?
I think you could have internal people that don't do those things. right? So,
So it's still an objective.
yeah, and it's an
view of
objective thing, and I think you celebrate it too. You talk as a team, and you say, "Hey, we're going to save labor hours this year. We're going to save some money, and let's do it all as a group." Right? You walk as a group, and Al, you tell us, Al, you do your thing, fill the flats. Everyone look at it. How might we do it easier? How might we save time? Oh, wow, there's lots of soil getting on the ground. Why is that happening? Oh, we're losing the soil. Does that soil go into the tray? Oh, actually, no, it goes in the garbage. So have everyone do it. I just say like engineers because they're very like objective and problem solving, right? Like they look at it and they ask the question, why? Why do you do it? Why do you like that? Why? And then you have to answer. In the process of answering the why, you will come to it and be like, huh.
Because your answer is very often, well, we've always done it that way.
Yeah, or you start to describe and you're like, oh, actually, maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you reinvent the process. Reinvent your processes every year, then record them for when you lose your grower, right? It's not an if, it's when. So
when I managed a garden center, we used to have to wait till the owner left for a week because he always took a family vacation in the middle of the summer, and we would just change a bunch of stuff up when he was gone, and just to try to make it easier for the staff. And a lot of times it had to do with watering, or we sold a lot of feed, so it was a lot of pallets of 50-pound bags, and we would just reorganize them so that the stuff we sold most often was closest to the dock door. Like, it was a no-brainer, but he'd always had cracked corn was always here, like for like 30 years. And we're like, well, that's a terrible place because we're selling more of it than you were back then. So I do think you need an objective or just empower your team to make those kind of decisions. You got another one?
The medium budget one, that's like
Let's hear
super
it.
low budget, right? But the medium budget, so automation is the future of so many industries, right? Because finding good help is challenging. It's getting more expensive. But anyone bought a TTA or ISO machine recently? Any hands? No hands?
Expensive transplanter?
Yeah, it's a little expensive, right? So you go to the shows, you see like the agronomics display, and you're like, oh my God, that's really expensive. Like, I'm not even going to walk through the aisle because I can't afford it, right? And how might you work with other local greenhouses, garden centers, right? Collaborate as a group, because again, I don't think you're always competing with another greenhouse, right? You're competing with time, and you're competing with a lot of other things. Understand their problems, and maybe could you share something?
Yeah.
Right? Like on the cutting side, TTA, right? Like, it's a pretty expensive machine. It is so slick. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out, right? Could 3 greenhouses go in together as like some sort of co-op? You buy a TTA machine, you pick whoever's greenhouse it is in, and you do shifts, right? A TTA machine like has a manager, a person that runs it, right? Why can't you do a third shift? Do a third shift, plant all night, put the things on the racks go on a truck, right, in a heated barn or whatever, and then that goes to the greenhouse. And so for the next day, no one has to plant anything because you just brought the stuff over. Are there other areas of your operation where like you could use that $80,000 machine, and your other greenhouses probably could use the same thing? Could you do it together?
I like that idea. Charlie Hall ended his talk at Cultivate, a state of the industry, by saying, manage, like the way to succeed in the next 3 to 5 years is to manage relationships. That's manage relationships with your suppliers, manage relationships with your customers. Just really work on making sure everyone's working in sync. More brains is better than one brain, so I do really like that idea. I'm looking at my clock, my watch, and it is 11:38, which means lunch is served. I think we need to wrap this up, Seth. Thank you so much for your ideas. I knew you'd have a ton of ideas. That wasn't going to be an issue. And my goal, again, was to work with Seth and to try to share a bunch of ideas and give you food for thought. Seth, any final words, anything you want to say before we close out?
I think to what you point, just one thing is, with the relationships, also collaboration. Ball had a famous consultant once tell us that the future belongs to those that collaborate. Right? Like, how might you work with other people, other businesses? Because, just have open dialogue. Oh, here's our problems. And together you can create an amazing solution. You don't always have to do it yourself. You don't have to build it yourself. Just collaborate more.
And I had a boss here at Ball who said, copy and improve. That was her big thing, is look at what other people are doing, think of how you can make it a little bit better. And Claire knows who I'm talking about. Copy and improve. I mean, there are very few brand new ideas anymore, but there are a lot of great ideas that you can tweak and make them just a little bit better. So thank you guys very much. I'm your host, Bill Calkins. If you like this installment, be sure to subscribe to the Tech On Demand podcast on your favorite app. I've got QR codes up here for Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just search Tech On Demand, Grower Talks. It'll come up in any app you use. There's more than 180 episodes covering a wide range of professional greenhouse topics. Try to put at least one out a week. But until next time, take care out there. Seth, thank you.
Thank you.